Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, got a couple of interesting stories for us today. This is our weekly update for October 3rd, 2023, coming live on YouTube and dual streamed over to Rumble. Once again, please support us on Rumble and YouTube and all these wonderful platforms. Keep the show going, keep us going out there. Also, if you want to look back through our library on Rumble, we've got a lot of great shows, a lot of information. We've been going for about a year now, and I'm kind of proud of what we've done. Little by little, gets better every time. Not always the perfect show, not always most information, but we try to be at least on point and try to give you something for your time. Now, today we're going to be going through a couple of quick channel announcements. Thursday night at 1900 Eastern Time, we're going to be doing another show, again, a topical show. Last week we did situational awareness and talked a little bit about Jeff Cooper and his color code. This week we're going to start a deep dive series into shotguns. You know, a lot of people worry about their handguns or their everyday carry. And when it comes to long guns, everybody's focused on ARs and AKs and assault rifles and all those wonderful things. Unfortunately, we've kind of forgotten the good old-fashioned American shotgun, which we'll get into is one of the most versatile tools, very affordable, very flexible, and a lot of times very low maintenance, very easy to repair. And if you're looking for something to really round out your stuff hits the fan collection, we're going to talk about shotguns and we'll get a lot into its utilization and capabilities. Also tonight, we've got a legal update. We've got some legal things that have happened, and so we're going to go in through that. We're going to talk about a couple of incidents. Now, these incidents are going to be different than our past couple of incidents, than most of them we do. A lot of them we talk about incidences that happened or what happened in this shooting or that shooting or anything else. Well, on this one, we're actually going to talk about incidents that didn't happen. Somebody saw something, they said something, they did right. And by doing right, we're going to talk about incidents that were prevented. And we'll get into those because we got a couple of interesting ones. And we're going to close it out with our good guy with a gun story out of Oklahoma. We're going to talk about that. Again, kind of a wild situation, but, you know, folks, the world is what it is these days, so we know. All righty. First off, legal updates. If you're not familiar, remember last week we talked about Judge Benitez in the 9th District Court had blocked California's ban on magazines over 10 rounds. He had said it was unconstitutional, basically didn't fit with the Bruen analysis. Bruen, if you're not familiar, we're going to do a deep dive into it probably a couple of weeks from now. But very simple, easiest Bruen test there is. When they look to see if something is constitutional, does it fit with the text, history, and tradition of the Constitution? Basically, has there ever been a law like this when the Constitution was signed? He said, no, there was never anything on a 10-round limit. As a matter of fact, people were urged to keep enough ammunition for their rifles, for their muskets back when the Second Amendment was signed. There were no limits on what you could have. So he said it clearly doesn't fit within that text and history and tradition, so therefore it's no good. The state of California under A.G. Bonta has appealed this up to the 9th District in California, and they will be addressing the appeal on this, basically trying to keep their mag limit ban in place. You know, again, California being what it is, I go through these shooting reports. The last 2 or 3 active shooters in California haven't even had multi-round magazines. It's not getting rid of them isn't going to fix anything. Simple enough. Easiest way to put it. California has been fighting for 5 years to hold on to this 10-round magazine limit because you can't just easily drop a magazine and put another one in. They've got all kinds of stuff, and, you know, it just doesn't seem to work. In addition, after the loss in Judge Benitez's court, in which he wrote a lovely 71-page rebuttal and opinion as to why this 10-round magazine limit made no sense, California has now put out several more proposed firearm laws, gun control laws, taxes on ammunition, 11% taxes on firearms, etc., 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 more required training, harder, everything in the world to attack guns. Some might say that, Gruesome Newsom is a bit of a sore loser, or AG Bonta is a sore loser. The bottom line is they are one of the most restrictive firearm states in the country, and they're fighting to make it more and more restrictive and more difficult. But yet, crime in California just seems to rage on. Gee, it doesn't seem to be working. But again, it is what it is. Second one, we had another big win. This one came in the state of Maryland. There were several restrictions on concealed carry that were supposed to start up on October 1st, this past Sunday, a couple days ago. Now, this whole concept came into effect after they took Maryland from a may issue a permit law to a shall issue as a result of the Supreme Court decision, basically stating that instead of Maryland may issue a permit if they determine your life is worthy of saving, if you've got enough connections, you may be able to get one, as opposed to if you meet the requirements, you shall get one. This was, the difference between may issue and shall issue. Folks, it had some pretty dark history behind it. Let's just say at one point or another, if you met all the requirements for a concealed carry permit, again, there was no requirement that the government had to or shall issue. It was a may issue if they determined they wanted to. Perhaps if you contributed to the right political campaign, perhaps if you were the right color, perhaps if you were the right kind of person. They wanted to make sure, again, a lot of these gun control laws were passed in the 60s when they didn't want certain people, wink, wink, nod, nod, giggle, giggle, to have firearms, because you know how those people get. And instead of saying, look, here's an objective list of criteria, if you meet these criteria, the state shall issue you a carry permit. Their laws say they may issue if they determine they wish to. If they determine you are of good moral character, Well, that got blown out in the Bruen case at the Supreme Court. So again, there was no history and tradition of this. It got blown out, so they had to change their law to shall issue. So as part of, now we have to give permits to everybody. Well, fine, we're going to put all kinds of restrictions on them. Their series of restrictions was where you could carry them. Now, when they talk about the restrictions on where you could carry, they wanted a list of restricted places. These places included, and I've got a list here, museums, healthcare facilities, state parks, state forests, mass transit stations, mass transit vehicles, any school, government building, stadium, racetrack, amusement park, casino, restaurants, any demonstration, whatever that is, or any private property that is not posted permitting you to carry. Now, that's a really difficult one. A private property under the Maryland guidelines was going to have to be posted permitting you to carry. Now, I recognize the fact of a private property owner, if he or she does not want firearms, they can post, no thank you, no concealable weapons. That's what we have in South Carolina. There are some private places that are posted. Now, if I wish to go into that business, that restaurant, whatever, that's fine. I'm not allowed to carry. However, if I decide that I don't want to carry, or if I want to carry, I eat elsewhere. If I decide I want to buy let's say it's a phone store, I want to buy a phone at that store, well, I can either not carry or I can get my phone elsewhere. Well, what they were forcing is businesses were going to have to put signage saying that we allow weapons. Now, many businesses don't want to advertise that they're pro-gun. They're liable to get protested, get their windows broken, things like that. Many businesses don't want to come right out and say, yes, we want guns in here. But they realize if someone's got a legal concealed carry permit, they're also chronically law-abiding. They're some of the most law-abiding citizens in the world. So they're not the problem children. So businesses, many I go to, allow you to routinely carry. Well, Maryland, as well as New York and a couple of other places, were trying to say fine, because New York also had a similar. Well, we may issue you a permit if we deem you're the right kind of person. What church do you go to again? Hmm. Who'd you vote for again? Let me look who you're registered here to vote. Again, we'd hate for you to get, but there was no requirement to do it. It was a may issue. New York also, as part of that Supreme Court, became a shall issue state. So they tried to basically make everything off limits. Well, yes, you can have your permit, but you can't carry it any of these places. Well, the Maryland judge came up and put a partial injunction against the carry location restrictions. Now, several of the ones I mentioned are still restricted. The ones that got the restriction lifted as part of this injunction: restaurants, demonstrations, and private property that's not posted. So, unless it's posted that you cannot, you can. Great. That's, one step. Now, as we go through that whole thing, and I know I read through that list quickly, one of the things that mentions is state parks, state forests, and mass transit stations. Okay. I get they don't want people carrying in schools. We can deal with school violence another day. Government buildings, pretty much every stadium's got that. Stadiums, okay. Racetracks, pretty much okay. But when you get into state parks, state forests, or mass transit stations, those are the three I want to focus on. If you're going to tell somebody that they cannot carry in a state park, a state forest, or a mass transit station, state parks and state forests. Now, in a stadium or a racetrack amusement park, there's lots of people around, and if shots start going off, it can be very, very dangerous. But if you're going out hiking in a state forest or a state park alone or with one friend, what's to stop someone from deciding they're going to jump you out there at 5-on-2, 6-on-2? I mean, it seems to me that would be someplace out in the woods in the wilderness, would be somewhere I would let people carry. I'd let people say, look, you want to carry out there, you feel safer going out, out in the woods. Again, their carry restrictions don't make a lot of sense. Mass transit stations also really flagging. Mass transit stations. Who uses a lot of the mass transit stations? Are we going to come up with poor or more wealthy people? Well, a lot of times you see a lot of poor, a lot of economically struggling individuals are using mass transit, particularly at all hours of the day and night. Okay. And they may be going into some not so pretty neighborhoods. Okay. Yeah, I think we should disarm them. The other thing that it has the effect of, if you took the bus from home to work, well, since you can't carry on the bus, you no longer could carry at work. They put mass transit in there to say, basically, unless you can take a private car somewhere, or unless you're driving your own car somewhere, or riding a bike or walking, you pretty much got disarmed. So again, a lot of this is done, these carry location restrictions are done to say, yes, the Supreme Court says I have to give you a permit, but I'm going to make your permit so worthless. That's fine. Now, when you look at Maryland, there was a very bad, horrible crime situation that went on in the last couple of weeks, and it involved somebody getting murdered. Actually, a couple of people murdered, assaulted, set on fire, things like that in Baltimore. Baltimore has got raging crime waves going on. They have a body count that's one of the worst per capita in the country. But again, we're going to restrict private citizens who are legally armed, who have followed all the rules, jumped through all the hoops, gone through all the background checks. Let's limit them. Folks, I'll say it right now. I've lived in a lot of cities. I've lived in a lot of states. I've lived in New York, traveled around New York City. I lived just outside the city, grew up there. I visited my brother who lived up in Massachusetts. I've, went to college in Virginia between Richmond and DC. I've lived in North Carolina. When I lived there, I traveled for business all over North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, over into Tennessee and Knoxville, Chattanooga. these metro cities and these metro areas are getting more and more restrictive, not only on if you can carry, but they're violent. And they're trying to say, oh, we're doing it because of the crime. We're doing it because of the gun crime. The thing is, it's not stopping the crime. You look at the places with the most restrictive gun laws, and it ain't fixing anything. So it is what it is. Those are the quick legal updates. Like I said, a little bit of a, hold off in Maryland, at least, restaurants, demonstrations and private property that's not posted. That injunction held off on it. The other areas, the injunction, the carry bans went into effect. Hopefully in Maryland, again, there's multiple suits going on trying to fight it. California, all the crazy stuff they're doing, that's pretty much going to be a whole stream on California anti-gun activism, and it doesn't make sense because the numbers don't add up. You look at some of the areas that have some of the most liberal open gun laws, you don't see the mass killings like you do in these other places. You don't see the body counts every weekend like you do in the Baltimores and the Californias. Okay, now let's have a little bit of a palate cleanser, if you will, a little bit of good news. I think we need some good news. This story comes to us from Prince William County, Virginia. It actually originates out of Anne Arundel, Maryland. They got Anne Arundel Police Department got a call from a concerned citizen. Somebody had posted some stuff online, some anti-threats towards a church, some pictures of a church, some different things like that of a specific church. And this individual was kind of concerned. They saw something, they called their local PD in Laurel, Maryland. It went to Anne Arundel, went through by way of there to Fairfax PD. Fairfax PD got a hold of it, and let's play this out here. We had a 35-year-old male posted the things on social media that caused the alarm. And the alarmed individual called the local PD in Anne Arundel. They called Falls Church PD. Falls Church PD went to this individual's house to talk to him, and unfortunately, no one was home. They determined that the church was actually located in Prince William County, Maryland. Okay. No, I should say Virginia. I'm sorry. It was in Prince William, Virginia. So they called down to Prince William, Virginia, just over the border. Their sheriff's department had an officer working at the church that day and found the suspect vehicle in the parking lot. The suspect had indeed entered the church. Church security, as well as county law enforcement officer from Prince William County, came in, confronted the suspect, and escorted him outside. The suspect had a handgun, multiple magazines, also had multiple edged weapons, a spring-loaded knife, possibly some type of credit card knife, some other things, and the suspect was taken into custody without incident. Now, as far as why he did this, his motivation behind it, we don't know. We do know the church had been, aware of someone was acting suspiciously. Their security were watching when they got the call. Law enforcement basically credits the concerned citizen who called the police regarding the online postings, as well as the joint efforts from multiple agencies in multiple states, right all the way down to the church for their vigilance. We talk about it. If you see something, say something. Folks, this was a near miss. This guy was in a place. He didn't routinely go to that church. He wasn't just there on Sunday service. He was armed. He had put threatening pictures up. Every reason to believe that something bad could have happened and would have very well happened. And it turns out that whatever the problem was averted. Now, at the time, there were roughly 1,000 people on the property, including over 300 children. One person saw something, realized, I don't know, got everyone involved. These agencies, instead of saying, not my jurisdiction, not my problem, the men and women involved from these agencies did an absolutely bang-up job. They kept following it, and sure enough, he was at the church, he was armed, and has since been taken into custody without incident. Now, although he had not done anything, him bringing a firearm to church was enough to charge him, and the DA is looking into other charges related to that. They did go back and look at his residence, and they did a search. They found numerous documents, related items. It doesn't say anything about any explosive devices or any additional firearms like that, but he posted on social media. Someone saw something, said something, and did something. Well, there's a near miss for us, but it's a little bit of good news. That could have been the bad case we were talking about if that person had not made the phone call. Now, I've got another one, and it's very similar in a lot of ways. This one's out of Sayreville, New Jersey. And again, it was, within the last week or so, an 18-year-old male was arrested after making threats. Now, this one was kind of interesting. 18-year-old New Jersey man is arrested after sending a manifesto online with threats to attack a synagogue as well as Jewish people in general. He's charged with transmitting a threat in interstate and in commerce. Now, the interesting thing is when you look at anything, according to the complainant, quote unquote, the defendant used social media to send a manifesto containing a threat to attack a synagogue based on his hatred of Jews. Point blank. No question, this guy apparently did not like people of the Jewish persuasion. Okay. Court documents allege that he sent the media, when swords collide, and authored a manifesto and all sorts of wonderful things. Now, he told the authorities the document was written while engaging in a role-playing game, at which point he imagined himself being Al-Qaeda and carrying out an attack and blowing up a synagogue. What? Yes, that's right. 18-year-old is imagining I'm Al-Qaeda and I'm going to blow up. What? Not the most stable cookie in the box. He also told someone at the hospital when he was taken for a psych evaluation that he believed he had been communicating with someone who was also Al-Qaeda and that was trying to get them to help with his plan to go blow up a synagogue. After being interviewed by law enforcement, he was voluntarily transported to a hospital for examination. And again, he told the hospital he was communicating with someone who he believed Al-Qaeda and discussing his plan to blow up a synagogue. Sounds like trying to get some help. Folks, somebody saw a social media post that was troubling, stepped up, took action. Now, this guy, I don't know if he would have ever followed through with it. They didn't say anything about having any bomb-making materials or plans for a bomb, or, didn't have like a timer and 40 sticks of dynamite all duct taped together or nothing. No. But you know what? He's sitting there fantasizing about blowing up a synagogue, and he's emailing out a manifesto or mailing out a manifesto full of threats to blow up. There's some sick people in this world. And, not all of them are getting the help they need. And I think we go into and we talk about, is it a crime crisis or is it a mental health crisis? Well, look at these two. Now, I've listened to our esteemed Attorney General and FBI Director talk about how white supremacists and ultra MAGA right patriots and all this, that, and the other are so bad. First of all, neither one of these gentlemen appear to be white supremacists at all. Based on their names and their mugshots, I would definitely doubt that they'd be welcome at the local white supremacist rally. Secondly, they're not in a group of any kind. They both appear to be very much lone wolf, mentally disturbed individuals. And, I hope they can get the help they need. I honestly, in both cases, in some ways, I'm glad that not only the attack didn't happen and kill anyone innocent, in some ways, I'm glad that, it didn't get to the point that these individuals, revoked their own birth certificate or cashed in their own chips. They need help. They need some serious help. And I hope that the system's able to not only get them the help they need, but subsequently, I hope the system is able to ensure that we're not doing, well, prevent them from obtaining anything they can use to hurt anyone. I don't think either one of them, for quite some time, should be trusted with anything sharper than their elbow. Let's face it, I'm not making fun of them because they have apparently a mental issue, but I am saying that, mentally disturbed individuals do this stuff. And in both of these cases, the concept of see something, say something prevented an attack. And sadly, because these attacks were prevented, the media doesn't talk about it. And I wanted to bring these out because, again, the best attack is the one that doesn't happen. The best shot we fire is the one we don't have to fire. The situation we avoid, the conflict we avoid. So again, something was said, something was done to prevent this. Again, tragedy, I'm all for that. Very, very much so. And lastly, on to our good guy or girl with a gun. This one comes to me clean out of Midwest City, Oklahoma. Again, within the last couple of weeks, a man was shot, broke into a house. Now, gentleman and his girlfriend are in the bedroom, and they hear a loud noise outside, and the dogs start barking. And note, the call came into PD at 11:45 a.m. 11:45 a.m. This wasn't dark 30. This wasn't someone breaking in while they're asleep. No, this is a very brazen individual who's going to go over at 11:45 in the morning, 11:44 in the morning, and bust into a house. Well, the man goes to investigate the noise. Okay. He finds an unknown male in the house, and the unknown male begins screeching at him in Spanish. The man retreats down the hallway to his bedroom, slams the door, and retrieves his pistol. At which point, the gentleman's trying to enter the room, and the resident shot the intruder in the chest. The intruder then fled and collapsed in the neighbor's yard. The intruder was later determined to be the estranged husband of the man's girlfriend. Now, I don't know what is going on in their relationship or what their family domestic situation is, or whether they're estranged. I really don't care. This gentleman apparently lost it for whatever reason, broke into a man's house at 11:40 in the morning. If you go breaking into someone's house, there's a good chance that something bad's going to happen. It's going to end very poorly. Now, as of this point, the suspect has not been killed. The suspect is still surviving. He is in the hospital. And after he's done with treatment in the hospital, he's facing charges of first-degree burglary as well as stalking. Folks, it is what it is. But wow, what a weird situation. And, I don't fault the guy for not knowing that, that's, the girlfriend's husband or estranged husband or ex-husband. Again, depends which article you read. I don't know what's going on. You break into somebody's home and go charging after them. They retreat to their bedroom, slam the door, and you try to force your way in the door. Now, again, the guy's still alive, but he could have so easily lost his life if the homeowner had, instead of firing one shot, if the homeowner had done multiple rounds. What if the homeowner had been particularly aggressive and, had something bigger than whatever handgun it was? What if the gentleman trying to break into someone's room, came head on with an AR-15 or, a shotgun loaded with slugs? We may well be having a funeral. Life's too short. Life's too precious. I'm glad that the homeowner is safe. I'm glad that the wife is safe, or the ex-wife, or the estranged wife. Again, depends which article you read. But I look at the end of the day and I say, where are we at? Breaking into someone's house like that, there's a good chance you'll get shot in this country. And to me, I'm not wishing anyone to get shot, but I'm glad this guy was able to protect himself. Who knows how this would have gone if he had not been there, he had been at work and the girlfriend was there, the wife, whatever. Wouldn't have been good. How about there's no kids and the way your kids got caught in the middle of it? That's good. So, again, we've got three, real interesting positive outcome stories. I don't want to see anyone get shot or get their birth certificate revoked, but, two incidents prevented and one, could have easily been prevented. Now, it does also turn out later on in the reporting on this one in Oklahoma City or Midwest City, Oklahoma, the gentleman had been trying to call the wife 107 times in, I think, the past 24 to 36 hours. And so, he did tell law enforcement that he didn't know when he'd, be able to find her. Okay. I guess I'll buy that. But, at the end of the day, this guy was able to defend himself before the cops could get to him. So it's a good guy with a gun story. But that's all I've got, folks. Please be smart, be safe. Check us out on all our social medias. If you like what you're getting here, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up on the Facebook or on the Rumble, on the YouTube, wherever. I've noticed we're not getting a lot of following in on YouTube. And, for that purpose, that's fine. I do most of these on Rumble. I do try to put our whole library up on Rumble of everything else. And the reason I do it is, well, I support Rumble because they support free speech. So, again, we're going to do our best to take care of them as much as we can. Thank you very much. Y'all be smart, be safe. Bye.